welcome back to Bread and Butter, everybody, where we're serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement in episode 80. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Tito. Tito, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Doc. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And we have a very special returning guest, new to me, Enthralimund. Enthralimund, how are you?
Hey, what's up? I'm great. Fantastic.
Perfect. So, Enthralimund, what have you been doing in Hearthstone?
Oh, what have I been doing in Hearthstone? Well, sadly, I have not been playing any traditional Hearthstone, and I've definitely been a little sad about Hearthstone since Duels left, or even back to when it stopped getting love. But I have been playing a lot of BGs. The last couple weeks, I've been playing a ton of BGs, and I'm really enjoying them, which I'm really surprised, because Buddies is one of my least favorite things in BGs. I don't know why I like it this time. I can't remember if we had spells last time we had Buddies. Maybe we didn't. I don't know.
Think so.
I don't think so. I think spells have changed it enough for me.
Right.
But loving it right now. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Tito, how about yourself?
Well, I've been mostly playing the month's changed. Have we had an episode since then? No, right? Yeah, we had one. It was I finished pretty well last season. I'm trying to build on that. Right now I'm struggling to get to Legend. I'm in that D5 to Legend slump. I've been playing I don't want to play the Druid. That's very popular right now, so I'm trying to get under that. So I've been playing this Mech Rogue that's really low to the ground that World 8 came up with. And first day, 33%. Sucked. I stuck with it. Second day, like a 66%. Doing really good. And now we're kind of waffling, and we're going up and down, making sure we cover the entire floor. So we'll get there. And I'm enjoying the deck. It's a lot of fun. And outside of that, some BGs and just normal things. But yeah, we're just playing the normal. I'm on Hearthstone. How about yourself, Doc?
I've been like I've been saying the last couple of weeks, just doing some BGs. I do have a new favorite art in BGs. I don't know how I've never seen this card before, but it's a tier 5 Quillbore, 3 Lil Quillbore. It's a 3/3 Death Rattle, play 3 Blood Gems on your Quillbore.
What a cutie.
That art is amazing. I cannot stress enough how much I just actually love that and hope I can get a print of it one day.
Aww.
And then today I actually got first place with not going dragons, which dragons have been carrying me so much, Joel. Basically, if I don't get dragons, I'm like bottom.
Excuse me.
I'm like 5 to 8th if I don't get dragons. Wow. And then I got a first place with elementals as Omu.
That's so funny though, because for me, like, I find I can't win with dragons. I love dragons, and I'm having trouble winning with dragons, like, generally right now. I'm like, oh, they're very, like, they'll get you to the top 4, and then it's just like you can't outpace, like, what's really good right now? Like, Beasts is the nuts.
Yeah, Beasts.
I don't know. What else? I can't even think off the top of my head. It's like when I'm in game, like, Demons is fine. I don't know. Anyway, but dragons, I find, like, you just can't, like, once you're there, it's like, oh, my opponents have like 500 health on everything. My dragons can't deal with this.
Yeah, I don't understand how people, like, hyper scale like that in BGs. That part of BGs just doesn't click in my brain. I was getting relatively close with my power with my elementals, because Omu's buddy, when he's golden, you get 2 minions of your tavern tier, right? But I also had a golden Rock and a golden Lil Rag.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's good.
I was I was just like APM on my phone, which isn't great to try to do APM, but I had like 2 minions with like 300 attack and like 4 minions with over 100 attack. It was just a lot of fun.
Man, that sounds great. I love APM builds in BGs. But I get really frustrated with the animation times for sure. And also, like, I try to play casually when I play BGs, like semi-casually. And and then I'll be like, ooh, I can go pirates. And then I'm like, don't do it, man. Like, you got like 20 minutes of stress. Don't do it. Just hang out. Yeah. Play your 5-second turns.
Do you ever actually play casually anything when you play it?
Yeah. I'm pretty casual with BGs. Like, I'll lose a match because I'm like distracted by things and stuff. Like, yeah, I don't live by my rank in BGs. I can't in ladder. Like, no. No. Like, I'll play casual decks in ladder, but I have to play competitive with them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to win. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same issue, but for me, like I'm not where you get to in the ladder, but most of the time it's just like I'm gonna relax. New set, new expansion, new mini set. I'm gonna try something different, and it starts going so well. I'm like, I start feeling it. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I'm just dropping like a stone, and like, nope. Gotta go back to something good. But before we move on, good.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, what else are you playing in BGs, Doc? Like, I don't know if you finished.
Just trying to go dragons when I can, but I tried doing a mech build today, and it just didn't work. And it was even a small lobby too, because 2 people disconnected instantly because they didn't get the hero they wanted or something.
That's the best.
Yeah, so I took 22 damage. I forget which turn it was. Obviously, it was late enough for them to not have like the safeguard. But I feel like when 2 people drop, the safeguard should last a little longer.
Yeah.
Than it does. Because I felt like I was like close and just like a turn away from being able to like ramp up and like be able to compete, kind of. But it was what it was.
That's always a good sign that BGs is in a good spot meta wise. I think is like when you're finishing games and going, oh, if I had one more turn, I would have been in that match. And there are times like when the anomalies were in BGs where it was never like that. It was just like, oh my gosh, I'm way ahead or I'm way behind, and there's no like in between. That's when I really, and I find with buddies, I used to find that too, and I was just like, ugh, it's like the haves and the have-nots, and it was just like, Anyway.
Actually, speaking of anomalies, we've had anomalies in standard for the last week. It's only a week, but they brought back a curated list.
I heard that, and I've been cycling on my standard quest because of it.
Really? Have any of you played any of the games in standard with anomalies?
Not, will not. Nope. I hated it the first time.
The list is curated to like only like, I think six or 8 of them. It's not as wide ranging as possible, and I've actually kind of been enjoying it because it's been kind of like an extra challenge to mulliganing and figuring out a plan. So you see what the anomaly is. Like, okay, spells are 1 less. How does this help me? How does this help my opponent? Can I mulligan differently to maybe take advantage of it, or can I, what am I going to do to regain the advantage that they're probably going to get from that? So I think for a week it's perfect. Like, I think it adds a little, something to the lull before the expansion. I've really enjoyed it, but if it was more than a week, I'd probably, okay, I'm done. But yeah, I've liked it. But anyway,
let's go.
Joel, what have you been doing outside of the game of Hearthstone?
Oh man, it's summer. First week of summer vacation as a teacher. It's been great. What have I been doing? Driving everybody around, my kids to dance and Mel to work and stuff. We took my car off the road. I've been fitting in some magic. I've had two kind of like commander days / nights.
Heck yeah.
So, but we've been playing quite a bit, like making time for it. Yeah, and some D&D like a week and a half ago with my brother at his house and our kids, and honestly, dog walking and I don't know, ice cream sandwiches and swimming. Lots of swimming.
Awesome.
We swim a lot in our family. We have a pool in our townhouse complex. It's meh. And then we like swimming in the ocean too, or lakes when we get there, but not a lot of lakes nearby. I grew up there. Yeah, that's been my summer. What about you guys?
So it'll be meaningless to me, or because I don't really play much of it, but what's your favorite commander deck?
My favorite commander deck of all time? I have an Isior Sakashima list that's like, it's called, I call the deck, anything you can do, I can do 1 turn later. It's honestly just clones. But recently, like, number 2 probably, like, I'm not a big Warhammer 40k guy. The art it's not my jam. But there was one commander that I absolutely love building, and his name is Karn the Betrayer. And I painted my own version, so I have a little goblin that like lights himself on fire. Oh, I'm knocking everything over here. And I painted this guy, and then I printed cards with him on it. So that's Scump.
I love it.
Scump, he who is on fire. And I love this deck. The commander's crazy, man. He like essentially it can't take damage. Anytime it takes damage is prevented. It's a 5/1. Has to attack and block every combat if able. And then anytime he gets hit with damage, you pass him to another player. So like it's kind of a commander clock and blah blah blah. And when you lose control of him, so when he dies or you pass him, you draw 2 cards. And they've made some cards like this recently where every player gets it around the table. I don't like those ones. This one's crazy and it's kind of political. And I try not to be too political with it. Like, I'll just give it to someone. I'm not like, oh, if I give it to you, will you give it back? I don't do that. And so I run a ton of like little ping effects in the deck, like deal 1 damage. And you can just, if someone swings it at you, you just ping it. It goes somewhere else. And then at the end of the day, I have 2 wing cons in that deck that are beautiful. One, I have a bunch of forks and reverberates and like fury storms, which multicast my spells. And I play the super janky deal damage to people equal to their hand size. So like with Pyrohemia and some effects, you can, if you're 1v1, you can pass them back and forth like 15 times, make them draw like 30 cards or 20 cards and then burn them for damage equal to their hand size, or reverberation effects. So all the board clears are damage based because they don't actually damage my own creature. And then I deal damage to people equal to the amount of damage I dealt to creatures. So that's how I win. That's probably my favorite deck, but it looks non-threatening and it kind of just like slowly wins the game at the end. Oh, it's fun. Not the best. My favorite.
I love that so much.
Yeah. But yeah, ask me about my favorite decks. I'll talk for hours. I'm sorry.
No, but
you're good.
I asked. I didn't understand most of what you said there, but I followed some of it. I remember Fork being like when I first played Magic, it was around the alpha time, beta time, and you get into a game and they'd be like, lightning bolt, fork, you're dead. I'm like, what? What? Huh?
Yeah. I had forks when I was younger. I sold my whole collection in like 2009. And then got back into Commander in like 2017 and felt really dumb. But I picked up a fork just like in this past year. I found a good used, like heavily played one for a really good price. They're expensive now. Yeah.
They've always been expensive. So Doc, what have you been doing outside of Hearthstone?
Oh, I mean, as usual, kind of a lot. So American Independence Day happened, so 4th of July. Which, yeah. Went hiking in the morning. We went out to Antelope Island. So it's an island out in the Great Salt Lake in Utah. That was really cool. We saw some antelope. Didn't get to see the buffalo. They were on the other side of the island that we went to. So we did like a mile-long trail up to a really nice like viewpoint. And then Cortland, she wanted to go down to the sand. I won't call it a beach because it's not a beach. It's kind of gross. So because of how salty the Great Salt Lake is, it's just basically the only things that live there are algae and bugs. And so it's really gross. And I don't know what kind of bugs they were, but there was like millions of little teeny like flying bugs on the sand. They wouldn't get on you, which was nice, but you'd like walk and then they'd fly out away from you and you could hear their wings because there were so many of them.
That's gross, dude. It sounds lovely, though.
Are you describing a real location?
Gnarly.
Are you describing a real location or Reddit?
Little both, actually. But I mean, it was beautiful.
Is beautiful, though. I just googled Antelope Island. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's amazing, but the bugs are not. Had some of my buddies over today to play some Commander. We played Commander from like 10 to like 4. And then we took a break for lunch, and then they showed me a new to me game shop in my area because I've only lived up where I live since like November. It's 2 stories. The entire top floor is all like Magic and Pokemon. And they, in their glass cases from going left to right, they have everything currently in standard, priced out there in singles. And then on the back wall behind that, they have like flats of every single set of all the commons and uncommons. So you know if you know which common uncommon you want, be like, hey, I want this common from Eldraine, and then they'll just give you the flat and you can look for it.
That's nice.
It's really cool. Their prices were pretty good, and they do deals on if you buy multiple packs of the same set. Like instead of like They were like $7, so instead of $21 for 4, it was 18 or whatever. So that was cool. They had a room downstairs that was just all Dungeons and Dragons. The main floor was all like video game resell and stuff. And they had another room downstairs that was all comic books, and then another room that was all board games. That was really fun. Got a new cat a couple days ago. Her name is
That's
Olive.
a left turn.
Yeah.
Also, I have a new creature in my family.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's a year old. Unfortunately, she's been a mom already at a year old.
Wow.
But she's spayed now and everything. She's really tiny though, but she's like solid. She's very, very muscular for how small she is. And she's just the most confident cat. Like when you think of like adopting a pet out of like a shelter, you think that they're going to be like scared and take a minute to like warm up. It took her like 30 minutes. And then she's like, okay, I want to see this place. Like show me around. And so she's been awesome. And she has like the lowest scratchy meow, which is adorable. It's way different than our other cat. And just playing a lot of Commander like today. So Enthralimund, I have a card called Shalyn Halar. Have you played against Shalyn Halar yet?
Yeah,
so
I had it in my Rocco Street Chef deck. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite decks that I have right now. And I didn't get to win on turn 5 because I got a 8/8 Boo Hamster thrown at Shalyn Halar the turn I played her. But because I had Red Terror in my opening hand, so all I would have to do was swing with Shalyn Halar. Red Source deals damage, Red Terror gains a trigger, Shalyn Halar trigger.
That's an infinite combo. I don't know what Red Terror is, but yeah.
Oh, it's a 40k card. It's a 40k card. So whenever Red Source deals damage, it gains a counter, which then triggers, and it's just a loop.
Oh yeah. I don't usually play super fast Commander, but I got permission to dust off my Jun Saproling's Aristocrats deck, and I won 2 games by turn 5 on the other night.
Heck yeah.
I had like a terrible stretch, and then like my friends were like, "No, yeah, play your best deck," and I'm like, "Are you sure?" They're like, "Okay." And then the other table, when I walked over, and because we switched tables, and they were like, "Hey, like, did you want to play that deck you just won with? That sounds interesting." And then I like. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. I felt kind of bad even. I'm like, yeah, last game of the night. Yeah, that's fun. It's fun to do that sometimes, but not all the time. I generally try not to play those kind of like win cons so early. They kind of like, but that's cool, man. That's cool. Red Terror and Shalyn Halar.
That was pretty fun. I did just make Owen Grady and Blue Loyal Raptor companions. So Owen, tap him, you give Blue haste, menace, reach, or trample, and then Blue gives that to all your dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And that deck's super fun. It's my version of it's not super great, but if the stars align, I can get 5 ETB triggers of Atali, Primal Conqueror, and getting 5 triggers of that is pretty good.
It's pretty fun. I Fury Stormed a Fevered Suspicions once, which is essentially cast it 5 times on its rebound, which is Atali.
Nice.
And I think I posted on Twitter, like, get yourself a group of friends who will let you resolve 5 Atali triggers online.
Dear listener, if you are like me and only understood 1 out of every 5 of the last words, we will be presenting the Magic to English translation in our show notes when this episode releases.
Yeah, sorry, Tito. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Commander's fun. That's all I gotta say. Commander's fun.
Super fun. One of my favorite things about Commander is just like, because I think as far as card games go, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like competitive card games go, is like, it's the only format I've ever seen where people are excited not to play the most powerful stuff. And like you feel like, I always think it's funny when people talk about Hearthstone, or I want to be creative in my deck building, but I just can't compete. Well, of course you can't. Like, they built the set to enact in a certain way, and the competitive decks are just going to be competitive. There's not a lot of creative deck building in solving the meta, unless you're like, I don't know, top player, you know, like. But in Commander, like, you can get so creative with it, or you can net deck and play something cool someone else built. It's so open. to how you play the game. And there's so many different kinds of people who play, like different kinds of play groups. Like that's my other favorite thing is you just have decks of all different power levels and kinds of gameplay. Depending on who I play with, I bring different stuff. It's great. Awesome.
Yep.
It sounded a little like duels there for a second, though. Like, hey, you just get to kind of be creative as you go and figure things out.
Mm. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
And playing your deck and figuring out what you like and what you don't like as you go is so much fun. Like 100 card singleton, you're always pulling stuff in and taking stuff out.
Yep. And because there's so many, like it forces you to find different lines of play through your same deck that you've played like 20 plus times before, just because of having that many cards, you're never guaranteed to draw like everything you need. And so you just have to find ways to like limp along or be able to spike when you can. I think it's my favorite pet deck, but it's came from Thunder Junction. It was a green and a white Miriam Herd Whisperer. She's a vehicle and mount commander. So whenever a vehicle or mount attacks, she gives them a +1/+1 counter. And they also have hexproof on your turn. And so it's just, I don't know. She's really fun. I built my own. She's not a very popular commander at all. She has like 50 decks, I think, on like EDH Rec or something like that.
Yeah.
But after I played it with my in-person play group for the first time, they were impressed and they felt like that should have been a theme for one of the precons that came out for Thunder Junction.
Oh, that's cool.
Which I took that as a fun compliment because I'm not a confident deck builder at all. I was just like, I like this card. I like the mount mechanic, and I'll just put what I have together and make it work. And it
that's awesome.
Works pretty fun.
Fun fact, Joel is also a vehicle and mount commander. He is also the Mars rover. So
I am. I am the Mars rover, so I could be well, I guess technically it's not a vehicle though. Like I am the vehicle. I don't know how that works.
It's because you're crewed, so it is a vehicle at that point. It is a creature and not just an
by
artifact.
My soul or something. Yeah, more of like an animated artifact. Yeah.
So for me, outside of Hearthstone, I've been
what have you been up to?
Not much. I mean, we had that busy week last week where we streamed a lot. My family was out of town. We're going to be doing that again at the beginning of August because they're also going to be out of town, which is going to be another opportunity to have a lot of fun. But outside of that, they came home super late on Monday, and I probably didn't have people to get to bed till like 2. My wife had to get up and work at like normal time at like 6 a.m. the next day. My kid had to go to camp.
Whoa.
And his camp experience lasted about 4 hours because, we were just going to pick him up, send him in late, pick him up early, let him know how he experienced it. Like, get to first time, it's kind of like day camp, whatever. And the counselors were just lame. They just kind of all hanging around. There was zero security. I could have walked in there, walked out with a kid. I was not happy about that. But also there was like, I guess they made the kids wait for pool time until they finished their basketball game. There was some bullying happening. It was such a bad experience that it was like,
that sucks.
Yeah, it's like his first camp experience, and this is what it is. So we opted not to send him back to that camp, and it wasn't a big. It was like a local thing. It wasn't like camp something or other. It was just kind of a thing at a local park. But I'm still pretty disappointed by the whole thing, and but. That's been it this week. I mean, it's been kind of readjusting to get everyone home, and I'm still looking for a job, so that's been interesting. Getting closer, I hope, but we'll see. But anyway, I don't think people want to hear about that. We've talked about that before. Why don't we get to know our guest a little bit better?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. So Joel, what got you started in video games, and how did you get started with Hearthstone?
Oh man, what got me started in video games? I was never allowed to play them growing up. I don't know. I don't know. My brother and I have always been really into games. We used to make our own games a lot. We had a Commodore 64 growing up. My brother would take the city bus to school when he was in grade 6. I would have been like grade 3. And he would trade pirated games with the bus driver. And that's how we got our hands on our first amount of like floppy disk, like not the hard disk, the small ones, like the big, like not the 3.5 inch, like the big ones, the big floppy disks with like, we just had 100 different games on there. My mom would set up a kitchen timer by the Commodore 64 for half an hour. We got 30 minutes of screen time. And I don't know, that's where we got started. But my brother and I have always been super into making our own games too. He's a game designer now, which is pretty cool. But how did I get started in Hearthstone? I grew up playing Magic, so I was probably like 12 when Magic came out. When I come 93, 12. So I started playing in like 94, 93, 94. And I played till like 2001, 2002 when my friends stopped playing. And then like I was really into kitchen table Magic, like just multiplayer 60 card decks that you built and played till 4 a.m. kind of stuff. Commander before Commander existed kind of stuff. And I was sold Ristic Study was a good card in multiplayer. My friends always gave me crap for it. And then when I came back to Magic and it was like Ristic Study's good in Commander, like what? I gave them some heat. Anyway, I was homesick from work one day in like Hearthstone come out 2015,
2014, something like that.
I think it was 2015 for me though. Dano and I always have that thing of Cupcake card back. We both have the same first card back. Whenever Cupcake card back was, and I was looking for like something to scratch the Magic itch. I was getting that, and man, Hearthstone's a great game, right? Like I was like sold, like like I was pretty into it. I would say about 3 to 4 months in, I was like, oh, this is my game now. Like this is my new game, I played some WoW for a couple years after I graduated university in like 2006. And by like 2007, 2008, I was like, this is not healthy. Like I shouldn't be doing this. I do have a bit of an addictive personality. I'm hyper aware of it. I'm not great with food or imbibing or like I don't stop. And so video games are not the healthiest thing for me at times. Yeah, I'd say the last couple of years I'm pretty proud of myself for like honing back on Hearthstone a bit. And maybe that's not what we want to hear on a Hearthstone podcast.
No, that's important.
Yeah. But like that's kind of how I got into gaming, I guess. My brother and and we eventually wore my parents down. I got a Sega Genesis and like
awesome.
I bought it from my friend when I was like 14 or 15 or something.
You were saying the Commodore 64. Did you have the cassette drive too, where it was like an actual cassette that you would put in, like a hard drive, but it was like same kind of cassette you would have for music?
No, never had that. Didn't know that existed till this moment.
No. I had that. I actually got second place in my science fair in 7th grade because I used the Commodore 64 to write a Choose Your Own Adventure.
Whoa, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, that's really a lot of fun.
That's really cool. There were a lot of good choose your own adventure games on Commodore 64. Like, do you go jump off the waterfall? Do you climb up the rope? And you always die no matter what you do, right? Like, dang it, these stupid games.
And I used to have it so I programmed something that would like make a character sheet from D&D from back in like 1985, and it would like have the little sprites and it would draw it, so it would have like the armor class over here and all that stuff. So it was a lot of fun.
Whoa, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, that's how I kind of get started in the line of work I do or did. But I had a question for you as far as the tabletop Magic. Did you ever play the mode? And I think I brought this up a week or two ago when we were talking about it. You ever? And I know this is not a Magic podcast. I apologize. But where you would be a color and your opponents were the two across from you as far as like the pentagram that's on the Magic card.
Oh, so like if like you were playing like shards or wedges or whatever.
Yeah, like you were green and your partner was on the left of you, which was like white and then red. And then like your opponents were black and blue and however you were. So you get to borrow mana from your neighbors and you get to do things. But
oh, interesting. No, I have never heard of this format. No, it sounds great.
It was a lot of fun, and we used to do the same thing too. It's like we used to play the tabletop. This is like in 1994. We used to play the tabletop Magic where we just put our collection in a big pile, and you have a pile like this big, and we just sit there there was no rhyme or reason to it. It was just everything we had, and we just play all night, play till like 5 a.m, and in the study areas, and it was just a blast. But
that's cool. One thing I will say is when we have 5 players, like. We've gotten a couple play groups together now of like friends of friends, and we have a pretty big number of people who meet to play Commander. And when we have a smaller showing and we have 5 people, like you can play 3-player Commander 4. 5 is terrible. But when we have 5 people, we play a game where you you essentially play with those. I think they're wedges, right? The opposite that you're talking about, Tito. And the two people across from you are your enemies in those games. And if you remove your two people, you win. And it's a really great 5-player commander, like alternate format. It's really odd because you're trying to convince your teammates not to kill each other, and then you're like, oh, it's just. But it reminds me of that a lot, and it's actually really fun. Yeah.
So there is a 5-player mode that my friends down in St. George introduced to me. I don't know if it's like well known and whatever, or if it has a different name, but we would call it Mafia. There's technically 6 roles, but there's a king, a king's man, a usurper, usurper's man, goblin, and a dragon.
Yeah.
So the king and king's man. So the king's role's revealed. Everyone else is a secret. King and king's man win by beating everyone at the table. Usurper and usurper's man win by killing the king. The goblin wins by being the first to die, or if someone else dies, they have to kill everybody first and then the king. And then the dragon wins by killing the goblin. And if the goblin dies like second, then they have to kill everyone and then the king. And so it's like you never get to know anyone's roles.
Convoluted. I've definitely played it. Like I've played a version of that where there's a king and then hidden roles. But it was many years ago. It would have been before COVID.
All right, I'm gonna put a 30-minute referendum on Magic Talk. Okay.
hey, you brought it up this time.
Yeah,
I know, and I regret my life choices. But at the same point, we probably should talk a little bit about Hearthstone.
Yep.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next question, Doc.
Yep. So how'd you get started with podcasting?
Oh man, Dan wanted to start Squelch, and he bugged me for a long time to do it, and I was like, no, it's gonna be a job, and like, I'm a talker. I put my foot in my mouth a lot, and I was like, I don't need like half of what I say is like for dramatic effect. Like I tend to like go overboard in my opinions. So I was like, the world doesn't need more of me out there. And then him and Magooch started it, and I was on a break. I thought I was done with Hearthstone, and man, the podcast was so good. It was just a blast to listen to them. And at one point, Magooch couldn't come on, so Dan had me guest, and I had fun. And then they kept finding a reason to invite me back, and then eventually I was just like, you're just trying to get me on the podcast. They were like, yeah, and I was like, okay. That's kind of how it started. Yeah, I don't know. Dan is the one. He was really excited about it, and I think like it was the right reason for Dan. Like, there were podcasts we liked, but none of them really had the same kind of vibe we had in our kind of Hearthstone play group between like Nate and Matt and Magooch and Dan and I. Like, we were kind of hanging out and watching Worlds and stuff all the time, and it was like we were just laughing so much about stupid things. Watching Tespa was just a joy. Like, and it just felt like it kind of didn't exist. Like, most of the Hearthstone podcasts were kind of trying to tell you how to play or what cards to play, and we were like, we like, that's not how we engage with each other in the game. So I think Dan did a really good job of like, I mean, maybe I'm just talking about how great Dan is, but like identifying a couple things. One, having a family friendly podcast, which was really smart because the other ones didn't feel like it. And two, just something where it was just like less competitive play or learning and more like hanging out with friends. And I'll always maintain the best podcasts are the ones where it feels like you're hanging out with friends that you know. Like, those are the best podcasts, right? Like, tell me I'm wrong. I don't know. They're the best. When you're like, I don't know, in jokes. Yeah.
Well, that's why I've been working to have you on the podcast, because I feel like we're buds, even if we're not. We have that parasocial relationship, that like I've talked to you. No. but no, it's just like I used to make the joke. It's like I used to listen to Ridiculous Hat used to talk to me more than my wife, because I used to hear him on 3 different podcasts. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, I agree with that 100%.
I tell this story all the time. Hat was one of the first people I ran into in a Slack channel around Hearthstone. And I was like, who is this little guy from New York? What the heck? And then like years later, I heard him. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give Coin Conceit another shot. I haven't tried that podcast in like a year. And it was like, we have ridiculous hat filling in. And I was like, what? I know that guy. And then like, I don't know, all these years later, like community manager, like unreal, man. Like and he deserves to be in that industry and he should. Like, we don't need to talk about how great Hat is. Everyone knows how great Hat is. But like, I don't know. And just, you know what too, is like, I appreciate with that community and the podcast, just how good people make me feel and welcome. Like, I think that's something where like, I don't know. I kind of, I don't know. It's the best part of podcasting, right?
And if you don't know how awesome Hat is, go back and listen to Bread and Butter episode 23, where we have him online. I think it's 23. It's somewhere around there.
You'll find it's the long one. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the first Squelch lore episode, and then what made you want to start doing lore episodes?
Oh, so we were talking about art before the podcast, and the lore episodes feel like art. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I work pretty hard on those lore bits. I'm always like, oh, I'll take like half an hour and I'll write one up, and then like 3 hours later, Mel, my wife, will be like, "Where are you? Like, what are you doing?" I'm like halfway done this lore episode. Like, give me a minute. I gotta edit it one more time. I got better ideas here. I'm actually very proud of my lore episodes, but they take me way too long. Like, the other guys write them so fast, and mine, I have a degree in visual arts. Like, I literally have a degree in creativity. It's really hard for me to do something creative and be like, it's done. Like, as any artist knows, like, it can always be better, right? And I'm always like, oh man, but I love the lore episodes. I didn't do the first one. Magooch did the first one. It's in the first 8 episodes somewhere. And I swear he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like you're at this point, he's talking about titans and like dwarves, and he's like going on. There is absolutely no way he has it organized, because it's absolute just gibberish coming back the other way. And it wasn't supposed to be funny, but I was laughing so hard in my car. Like, I just was losing it on the way home from work. I'll never forget that drive. And I immediately texted them and I was like, guys, like this is gold. Like, this is the best part of your podcast. Like, I have no idea what's happening, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world. So I don't know. I have to look and see like what episode it was, but it's fantastic. It's like my favorite. Yeah, lore is fun. I haven't done a good lore bit in a while. I really should.
It's funny you say that. So, like, last week on Blizzlet, Daniel said, I wish there was some lore around buttons, which is one of the new cards. So for some reason, just got it while I was walking my dog, and I got an idea, and that's, like, a lot of times, a lot of my ideas come when I'm walking my dog. So I wrote out this whole backstory to buttons, and he was like, whatever. And people were like, what the heck is this? Did you write this with AI? It's like, no, I did this myself, though. Like,
oh my gosh, I hate that. I had a person at work tell me that my painting is so good it looked like AI, and I wanted to throw up. I was so mad. I'm like, your painting is so good it looks like you ripped it off another artist. Thanks, cool, really appreciate that. They're like, I mean it as a compliment. I was like, yeah, I'm sure you do. Thanks. But that's frustrating. That's a frustrating part of AI, right? Like, from now until the end of time, when you do something creative you're proud of, that'll be a question that someone asks you, right? Like, did you do that? Like,
and so I worked in AI. I worked with AI at my last job, and I actually think that there's a lot of good with AI. Like, at the beginning,
for sure.
When it first came out, I liked the fact that, you know, you could do the art thing, right? You could be like, hey, make the Muppets play baseball on the moon or something like that. And then when I found out, hey, they're ripping off artists, I stopped doing that kind of stuff, even for the fun. It's like, no, that's not right. But
like that makes sense though, right? Like, you don't have skills and you want to see an image come to life. That's fair. Right. But then there's different levels of art. Right. And it's like, I don't know, like, when it comes to like self-expression and creativity, like, why are we getting robots to do creativity for us? Like, why, like, art is all about sharing human experience, and storytelling is all about sharing human experience, whether it's comedy or horror or romance. Like, it's all about sharing moments that you could relate to or would hope to relate to. or to empathize with. And like, why do we want robots to do that for us? I don't know. It blows my mind.
Well, I can tell you why. And on some levels, it's like, so like, I'm a small podcast content creator and I don't have a budget and I want art. And this is just an example, but it's like, it would be easy enough for me to go to AI and say, hey, make me a logo, make me this, and get that cheap and free or very low price. But based on the fact that stuff is being developed and being built on stolen art and all that, I decided that I'm not going to do that. And I actually, everything I've had done has been done by a legitimate artist, and I'm going to do that. But I can see where it'd be easy to say, hey, I need something done. I don't want to pay for it or pay like a real person to do it. I want it done right now, because like how it's instantaneous, right? So I mean, I can see where it comes from, but it's definitely
that's a whole like we could get into. It makes me want to get into late stage capitalism, but it really grinds my gears around the idea of like so it's like quantity versus quality, right? It's like, oh sweet, like I could do 18 logos for myself in 3 minutes, but like, if you've ever worked with a creative to write you a song or design you a logo and they're good, like the outcome is amazing. And that's fine too. Like you've been able to do clip art logos for 30 years. This isn't something especially new. It's just that now it'll at least be somewhat unique, right? And it doesn't bother me when people use that stuff for that kind of thing. Like it doesn't bother me to the nth degree. It bothers me because I'm sad that creatives are losing jobs, right? Like that sucks. We don't need less creative people.
Yeah.
And AI tends to put business people in a situation where they can profit off AI. And I'm like, oh man, like I want more creative people, not less, I don't know. But yeah, I'll stop talking about it. See, this is where I don't want to come on a podcast and talk about AI. I don't even know,
But it's like where we are right now. It's like when you're impatient for your microwave to finish 20 seconds to get your Pop-Tart or whatever, or your thing. It's like that's where we are right now. It's the same kind of thing. It's like that's our attention span. And yeah. Anyway, I asked a question. So
you ever have a real Danish from like a European pastry bakery? They're really good, like really good. We had one here that closed down. The lady retired. It was kind of sad for me because I like pastries. I had never had like a non-grocery store pastry until my 20s, and I was like, "Oh." Speaking of Pop-Tarts, I don't know, like a Danish. Oh, I mean, I know it's not a Danish; it's like a sugar ravioli. Is a Pop-Tart a ravioli? Is that a question? I don't
know. I would say, yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like a panini.
Calzone.
A calzone. It's a calzone. It's a sugar calzone.
It's a sugar breakfast calzone.
So Joel, what are your thoughts on Squelch 2?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. I wish I could have been on more lately. I think, and this is a total tangent, I've hardly been on Squelch for months. Like, I think I've been on once in the last 2 months. I'm a little sad because I'll probably make more time for Hearthstone than other games, but I'm very excited. I think like it's about time. I think Dan said it all on the program, which is like he's finding it harder and harder to have positive like interactions with the game, and I think then that means it's time to move on to other games. And like I have a feeling they'll still talk about Hearthstone, like when it comes up, but like. I think like Squelch, and I've already said this kind of like I think Squelch's best qualities are the vision Dan had, and then our friendship. Like the people who are on it are actually friends. I think those are the two best qualities, and I think like when the friends don't all share the same interest around the game to the same depth, where it's like daily, we're all like the way Doc and I are talking about Commander, right? Like when that's not happening. What's the word? Like organically, yeah. Authentically, like that. Then it's time to move on, right? And find something else that works. We'll see. I'll listen. I'll come on. I'll find a game I'm going to play, and then I'll come on, and we'll see how it goes, right? And I think the thing is like I'm really proud of Squelch, and I think Dan should be really proud of Squelch. I never thought we'd have more than 20 listeners, or a Patreon or things, and like at the end of the day, if it's not working and we want to go back to Hearthstone, like you could just do that, it wouldn't be a problem. But if we're all playing Hearthstone again. Yeah. Or I don't know. I haven't really talked to the guys very deeply about it, to be perfectly honest. So maybe I'm speaking something they don't want me to say. Because I definitely have kind of said hey, I may not have time for these other games. We'll see. But I'm always happy to come on when I can, because it's they're some of my best friends. So why wouldn't I? But I'm excited.
For those that don't listen to past Squelch, there might be not a complete 100% crossover. What are we talking about by Squelch 2?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're not going to be an all Hearthstone podcast anymore. Not that we were to begin with, but they're going to focus on cheaper games that cost less than one Hades. So just fun games to play, and I think that's great. And I think at the end of the day, Squelch is Dan's baby, and Dan likes playing a lot of different fun, weird games, and yeah. We're at a different stage in our life, 9 years ago, him and I were staying up till 2 a.m. and getting 5 hours sleep playing Hearthstone. We're not there anymore. We're in our 40s. We can't do it anymore. It doesn't work. So yeah.
So how do you accomplish anything in your life, laughing as much as you do? Never mind actually getting on to do a podcast.
I don't laugh this much in person. I laugh when I perform and when I'm in front of people. I think, and podcasting isn't quite performing, but it kind of is. But Dan makes me laugh a lot. Dan can smile and I'll laugh. You have friends like that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Dan will get a name wrong and I'll lose it. I don't know. But I try to laugh. Life isn't always easy for me. There's a lot of things going on in my brain. But I think if you can't laugh at your problems or your mistakes, then you're missing out on life. Life should be enjoyable when you're at work. Life should be enjoyable when you're at home. It should be enjoyable everywhere. We only get so long. Laugh. I don't know. It's hard in moments, but
mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, sometimes Squelch goes super long because we just I don't know. Get off track. I enjoy doing podcasts where we get way off the rails. I think they're way more fun than the ones that stay on the rails, personally.
The first episode,
sometimes I'll be.
The first episode we had Dan on. He was so we started talking and all right, ready, and we did the 1 2 3 clap, 1 2 3 clap, and we went right into the show. He's like, whoa. Normally when we start this, we talk for another 30 minutes before we get to anything. He was so taken aback by that.
I clap wrong on purpose. It's my favorite game. That's my favorite game with Dan. He hates it. It's I don't know. And I think, it's just fun doing a podcast with your friends because sometimes we'll do, so legitimately we have done podcasts for an hour where we did a longer podcast before we weren't recording, I don't know. And if people are thinking about starting a podcast, I would say that's the most important thing is it will become a job at some point, and you better enjoy doing it, or why are you doing it?
Mm-hmm. So you're also known for taking extended breaks from Hearthstone and then coming back and casually finding yourself at a high level of play very quickly.
I am blushing.
we honestly probably could do a whole episode about that specific experience for you. But what's your secret and how did you get so good at Hearthstone?
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you. I didn't feel good at it for a long time. Probably took me a couple of years. And I think my biggest secret is I have a very unhealthy relationship with gaming. That's my biggest secret. I love difficult games and I don't give up. So and it's not always a healthy relationship. This way with art too. I'll be making a painting and it'll be going terribly and I won't get up because I know if I get up now, I won't come back to it. You know, it's like I can't get up from this painting until I'm happy with it. I'll be like, I'll paint another half hour, and 3 hours later, I'm like, okay, I'm somewhat happy. Okay, now I can get up and make dinner. Oh, it's 8 o'clock at night. You know, like that's that's like how my brain. I don't know. Like, yeah. So like with gaming, like when I find a really hard game, like the first time I played Dark Souls, I was like, I'm gonna play this game for years, and I did. Like, I was like, I love it. Like, I need to figure out how it works, and I need to get good at it. And with Hearthstone, it's kind of the same. So when I'm learning a new deck or a meta in Hearthstone, I think I do a couple things really well. Number one, I don't worry too much about my win rate until I'm at least at 50 to 100 games. So like once I'm at like 50-ish games with a deck that I really enjoy playing, that's more important to me than is the deck strong. Do I really enjoy this deck? Then I'll start tracking my win rate there and seeing like, okay, I feel like I know the deck now. I know how the matchups work. And then number two, I lose and I mess things up a lot in those first 10 to 30 games. I don't spend very long on my turn thinking because I have a very short attention span. I play wrong and then I pass the turn and then I think about why what I did was wrong. I assume what I'm doing is wrong. And during my opponent's turn, I go, oh, I should have done this. And instead of beating myself up, I go, okay, well, I know that for next time. Sweet. Awesome. Kind of like drawing. In drawing, you make a mark, and it's almost definitely wrong. Every mark you make in drawing. You're probably going to have to move it and change it. And if you're the kind of person who makes the wrong mark and goes, oh, like, I'm the worst, I suck at drawing, your drawing's not going to move forward. Like, you use the wrong line to find where the right line goes. You're like, oh, I see how it's wrong. Now I can. So I think in Hearthstone, honestly, if I had one skill, like, that would be it. It's like, don't be afraid to play wrong. Don't beat yourself up. But I'm bored on my opponent's turn, so I just think about like what I did and what they're doing. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. That's how I learn. And then by the time I've played like 50 or 70 games, Dan's played 5 with a deck. He's like, how are you so good with it? I'm like, it's an unhealthy relationship. But I am like analytically minded too, right? Like, I think that comes from art partly in gaming. And like, I do like understanding why I'm winning or losing. I think that's fun.
Nice. So when you come back from a break into a new meta with cards you've never really seen before,
yeah, that always gets me. You should hear in our vocal chats. I'll be like, "What is this card and why does it exist?" And they're like, "Oh, that card sucks." I'm like, "Well, it's really powerful on turn 14 when I didn't see it coming."
So
sorry.
When you're good. When you come back to a spot in the game where you don't really know what's going on, how do you figure out what you want to play?
Oh man, like inevitably, when I come back from break, I probably heard of something on Squelch, right? Like I'm like, oh, that deck sounds fun, you know. I used to play super janky decks all the time, and I would struggle and hit Legend, and it was a grind all the time. And I'd hit Legend with like 5 days left in the month, and be like on old ladder, and be like, oh, and I was like, I'm pretty average at this Hearthstone game, and I didn't understand that like playing bad decks was like that hard. And like Hat always laughs. He's like, dude, you hit Legend with that deck? I'm like, yeah, I did. Like, I don't. At the time, I thought I was just like not just a little worse, but they were quite a bit worse. And then so like now I don't really have a ton of fun if I'm winning like 2 out of 10 games. If it's like, so I generally try to just play whatever looks fun to me, and if it's, you know, if it's in that B tier at least, then I'll jam it for a long time. But I love playing my opponent's cards. That's really fun. And what else do I like doing? I don't know. I like turning lots of knobs on my turn. That's like, yeah, like Miracle Rogue kind of lists where like you got to find the line over like 30 actions in one turn. APM stuff. That's fun.
Yeah. So what's your favorite deck of all time?
Yogg and Load Hunter.
Yes.
100%. Yeah. In Witchwood, before people knew Yogg was good. I was like, hey, this Yogg card feels pretty good. They're like, it's so random, it's terrible. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, it feels pretty good at the end. Like, it wins most of the time. I don't know. And then, you know, a month later, it was in every deck at Worlds, but like, or at the quarterly championship. But like that deck, it's funny because I'm not a big Hunter player, honestly, but that deck was so much fun. It was kind of the beginning of that kind of Discover era. I really like Discover Mage. Last year's Control Priest is one of my favorite decks of all time, but I also really like Galakron Priest, playing all my opponent's cards over the course of the game and outvaluing. I enjoy that a lot. But Load Hunter is my favorite deck of all time. What are your favorite decks of all time? Dog, Tito, what are your favorite decks?
I would say mine probably is Dragon Hunter, which is the one I first got to Legend with, and I played a lot of that. And I think there's something special when you have a accomplishment along with the deck, and that's probably why I remember it that fondly. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I got to know it so well. I played it so much, and after that, it was probably Shadow Priest, because that was my first and only 11th star.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. The Dragon Hunter. Which Dragon Hunter was that?
It was Zalay with the Rottenness. Is Zalay Dragon Hunter with the Rottenness Drakes and whatnot? Where
yeah.
It was
cool.
It was a blast. I just love that deck so much.
So mine's kind of a twofer. I really love old Big Priest when Big Priest was like a thing in Standard and like One Night in Karasan.
Yeah.
I took it to DreamHack.
Dan was so excited for that set for Silence Priest, and it was so bad. It was so bad. And then like Big Priest got big, Barnes Priest got big, and he was so grumpy about it. He just he was just like, oh man, I really wanted to was the 4-8 you would silence? Sorry, I'm throwing it off.
You're good.
That's cool.
You're good. That's has a very fond spot in my heart because I took it to DreamHack and had fun with it there.
That's awesome.
And then I made a Murloc Paladin Vicious Apothecary deck.
Yeah.
So I mean, I ran one Divine Favor in there, so I would whiff sometimes and get a 3 cost.
Yeah.
But I ran Dino Size and like the big Murloc spell, and it was just fun Murloc stuff because everyone's like, "Oh, okay, it's just regular Murloc Paladin," and then you drop the Apothecary, and everyone's like, "What is happening?" It was perfect. I loved it a lot. Sorry,
that's rad.
3 for Saku from THL is one of my favorite memories of Hearthstone playing ever. So I killed him on like turn 3 or turn 4 with Miracle Rogue because it was like the absolute nuts with Vicious Fledgling and just got like all the perfect adaptations. And Saku was just such a champ, and we just talk about that game whenever we talk to each other now. Like Flappy Bird is really just sweet. Such a fun moment between the two of us.
Oh, that card was not okay. It was like not my favorite play pattern. It felt so good when you hit someone with it, and when someone hit you with it, you're just like, I just didn't draw the cards that stop Flappy Bird, and now I can't target it. You can't destroy it. Cool. This game is really that was funny. That was when Ant made it to Worlds. He was big on Flappy Bird, I remember.
Yep.
Anyway, memories, lovely.
Yeah, Hearthstone's been fun for a long time. So what's your favorite non-Hearthstone game?
I mean, are we talking video games? Like, probably Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering, if it's not Hearthstone. Like, I like tabletops a lot.
Nice.
Video games, like, of all time, like, probably NHL 94. You know, I'm a big NHL player. I used to be. And NHL 94 is just like one of the best video games of all time on Sega Genesis, especially. It's the best system. My friend, my best friend growing up, his name was Jordan. He lived across the street. He had a single mom who was out quite a bit, so we would often watch him. Mm-hmm. As we kind of grew up together. Like we were friends to the point I call his mom. Like he would be at my house or I'd be at his house hanging out when we got home. Stuff like it. Kind of like shared family. And as we grew up, we never stopped playing Sega 94 until I was probably 24, 25. My brother and Jordan and myself had we kept our stats and everything for 11 years on that stinking game, man. It was great. And every once in a while, like every 3 or 4 years, we'll bust it out and jam the game. And
that's awesome.
My son plays a lot of NHL now. I can still beat him most of the time, which is nice. But like when we play Sega 94, like I absolutely like just wreck him, and it's like the best. He's like, "How do you even score in this game?" You have like 12-1. Oh, it feels good. Probably NHL 94. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Joel, be real with us. Does Magooch actually exist?
Nope. He's a figment of Dan's imagination, but we just play along.
Okay.
But yes, absolutely, Magooch actually exists. I don't want him to get upset. Yeah, Magooch exists. Yeah, I wish he'd come back on. I mean, I'm sure we could get him on at some point. He's a busy dude. He's got kids and a life, and yeah, I feel that. I was like, I'll be on Squelch for sure once a month, and I haven't. So I can't criticize Magooch. I'm not on enough. Yeah.
We've actually have talked to him about coming on this show before he goes back on Squelch.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so like just because it would be funny, but also to like because he's taken a long break from Hearthstone, but he's still kind of interested. So we got him a couple decks, and he was like playing them, and he's like, well, I'm not quite right there yet. So eventually we may have him on.
You should just get some random person and get themselves to call themselves Magooch.
That would be so perfect. Listeners, you don't hear any of this.
We'll bring you back on in a month, Joel, and we'll say, oh, this is Magooch. And you can just be Magooch for the entire episode.
Yeah. He's a lovely human. Yeah. And his voice, like he had like of the kind of like Magooch, Mad at Arms, myself and Dan. He definitely has the most radio voice. Electric Sheep has pretty good radio voice too.
Yes.
I have a face made for radio, but so
we all do.
Yeah.
All right. So it was great to get to know you, Joel. Thanks. You. But I think it's time to talk about actual Hearthstone cards. So we have a new set coming out, Perils in Paradise. We've already talked about a few of the different sets. I believe we've talked about Mage, we've talked about Rogue, we've talked about is that it? Mage, Rogue, we've talked about half of the Warlock, and we talked about Paladin. So now we have the other half of a Warlock, Death Knight, Shaman, and a Warrior card. So before we get into this, have you been following these at all? Joel, do you have any thoughts on like any of the Rogue, Pally, or Mage sets?
Have I been following this at all? Not really.
That's
I
fair,
looked today. I've been listening to Squelch and the cards they've talked about, I've heard about. But I was looking through today, and I think I texted and I was like, dang, I'm actually really excited about this set. It looks cool. Yeah, no, I'm really excited that Rogue, we're getting into playing our opponent's cards more. I'm always a fan of that. Hopefully it'll be like somewhat playable, I know it has been off and on the last two metas, but I really like the tourist mechanic. I think the tourist mechanic is cool. I like that it's limited to this expansion. Like you can't just go willy-nilly with the other classes cards, is my understanding.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's cool. So they built a set for it, like which cards would work well in the other classes, but not be too pushed or anything. It's nice.
And it's interesting because there are some cards out there like the I forget the name of it, but the 10 mana Paladin card, which is it costs 1 less for each card you've played on a minion, and it summons 3 5/5 pirates. And based on Rogue and based on whoever else goes into Paladin, it like works differently because Mage, I think it's Mage, because Mage has big spell Mage, so that can kind of work in a big spell Mage, especially with some of the mechanics there. Yeah. But it works differently than it does with like Rogue, and it works differently than it does with Paladin. So it's kind of like they looked at some of those and did it 3 different ways.
It says characters too, so you can target your opponent or yourself.
Yep.
Too. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. It'll be fun. I should play more Arena too. I was playing a bit of Arena after Duels died to try and scratch the itch a bit. Arena is Arena is really underrated. I say this on Squelch all the time. They really, Matt, I'm so off topic. I shouldn't be saying
No, you're good.
They really need to do more limited formats, though. Hearthstone, it just like the digital platform, it absolutely would be perfect for more limited formats. But like a lot of these cards I look at, like Sea Shanty, I'm like, I don't know, just with how powerful Hearthstone is right now, like I can't imagine that card is super playable. But like that would be a banger in the right arena deck. You know, you drafted a bunch of I guess you don't draft that many spells.
I don't know. You get
three
the mage
5/5s.
You get the mage legendary that makes him the next spell you cast cost 5. So
yeah,
that seems pretty good. And you can also get the super cheap, super fast with a lot of the paladin spells. So I think that's potential here.
Have they said how they're doing arena? Are they going to dual class arena again or something with these? That would be cool.
I don't think they've said anything yet. But I mean, they always go back to at least for like Halloween time, right? Like to have dual class arena for a while.
My guess is Taurus, since Taurus are it's not a real in-game mechanic, it's a building mechanic. So I'm guessing that those aren't going to be legendaries that you can pick in arena. So I'm guessing that they're probably going to just be, it probably won't affect arena that much.
I like this sandcastle guy. It turns into a location. That's cool.
Yeah, and it does scale.
Yep.
So like if you buff its attack, it gets more durability as a location.
No, not just durability, attack. So what you do is you play it in buff paladin, you make this like a 12, 18 or whatever the heck it is. You play it, you run it into something, it becomes a location, you then buff one of your charge minions.
Is it a random location?
No.
It becomes its own version of its location.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, if you buff it, it'll buff correspondingly.
+3 attack and rush. Turn back into a minion. Interesting.
It's kind of like Vermonio, but it's Vermonio with a location.
Yeah.
But let's
+3 attack is pretty good for aggro too. Like you could run this in, and then you could just buff something and get lethal too, right? Buff something +3.
But that +3 attack scales as well. So in a buff paladin, that could be a +8 attack.
Oh, the
+12 attack.
+3 attack.
Yes.
Scales. Oh no, yeah, no, then that's just charge.
Yeah, that's charge.
Right there, that's just buffing a minion that's already out. Yeah, you clear the taunt and then buff the minion that's gonna get through. Oh, that's it's pretty hot.
So with the sets that we're talking about now, let's start talking about the shaman set. I got links there for each of them.
Cool.
So thanks to Ben Hearthstone as always, because we're using his images. So shaman set seems kind of interesting, but it also doesn't seem like people seem to be kind of down on the power level here, or they don't feel like the shaman is going to be. Right now, shaman's like the worst class, right? So I think a lot of people are thinking that shaman is not getting enough here to be better. You have a couple interesting cards. They're legendary. Their non-Taurus legendary is Cabaret Star, Cabaret Star, which is while this is in your hand, play two different spells, spell schools to transform. So there's a whole list of which spell schools. So you can play any of the spell schools, and the first two you play are what goes on this card, and it's just got some different effects. It seems interesting.
Okay.
So it doesn't keep changing. So once you play your third card, that doesn't affect the card. It's the first two. So you kind of have to plan around that.
And those will determine whether they draw cards or deal damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that there's one that deals 6 to the enemy hero. That's cool.
And some of the spell schools are going to be a little difficult. There's only like one arcane spell, Fell. I mean, you might be able to get Fell if you play the minion that the train conductor there. So there's ways to do it.
I thought this Carefree Cookie seemed pretty good.
It's the Demon Hunter Taurus, so that's the Demon Hunter Taurus. So so you get to play Demon Hunter cards along with the Shaman cards. And we don't have those yet.
But that's pretty like strong. Like you trade things in and they come back as bigger things potentially. That's a really, but it has the same problem a lot of like Evolve Shaman and Value Shaman decks have, which is like they're good in very specific situations. They're like, when Shaman's good, it's kind of because they're like value cards are just kind of over the top generally. It's not, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. One thing I'll say about looking at this whole set was I always ask myself that question with new Hearthstone sets now, which, like, is any of this powerful enough to see play? Like, Hearthstone is so powerful now. Like,
crazy.
It's crazy. It's insane. And it's like, are we just going to see 10 nerfs and 10 buffs in 2 weeks? And if so, why am I playing on release date? Like, I hate to say it, but that's sometimes been a bit of my like hesitancy of playing on release days. Just like, I'm just gonna wait until they fix the SAT to start.
From what I understand, this next set, they are doing a different cadence where they're not going. They might, if we have like an Outcast of Outlands Demon Hunter situation, maybe they'll have an emergency kind of thing. But it sounds like they're going to be waiting a bit longer, like another 2 weeks before the first patch. Or the first balance check. So give us time to kind of figure things out. So I'm kind of hoping that's going to help a little bit.
Well, that's good. I just find for me now, I just kind of wait for that patch. I generally, like, I'll play on the second or third day a bit, and then I usually go, okay, I think I'll just wait for the patch, and then the meta usually gets better, and I have more fun.
See,
it's exciting, though. These cards, the art is sick on these cards. I like it.
But before I started hitting Legend,
cookie.
Yep. Before I started hitting Legend consistently, I would play like an aggro deck. Like, to just like, I'd play like the last set aggro deck just to try to win in the farm. And just because I was trying to get there, and like that's my best opportunity. Is
Tito,
just kinda...
why are you admitting to being that guy, man?
because I'm not that guy anymore. I've learned that was years ago. Now I'll play. Now I play what's fun. And then I regret it later when my rank is dropped 300, 3,000, whatever it is.
If a new aggro deck looks fun, by all means, go for it. Right?
Yeah.
I've definitely played aggro on day one, but usually just like new aggro.
So
what is this Summoner Dark Marrow? Your death rattles triggered twice. Destroy it. Seems cool. How many combo pieces does Warlock have right now? Why am I asking these questions? I don't know.
Well, I guess we're jumping to Warlock.
Oh, sorry. I'm just perusing. Sorry, no. Tito, I'm taking over your podcast.
No, it's okay. Let's wrap up Shaman real quick before we move on to that. The funny thing about Taurus is you forget when you're thinking about it initially that it's only the cards from this set. Like I saw Natural Talent get a random Naga and a random spell. I'm like, oh, Sharpshooter, because we get Demon Hunters cards, and we don't get Sharpshooter because that's from last set or the set before. And it's like, because it looks like it's setting up, but the cards here, the other card that's kind of interesting is Razzle Dazzler, which is Battlecry. Summon a random 5-cost minion to repeat for each spell school you've cast this game. And that's similar to the Mage one that summons 4 or 5 elementals. This is random. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think it's a 7-mana 4/4. I don't think it's going to be powerful enough to actually see play, but I think it's going to be fun.
You'd have to be in a mid-range deck that's just looking to fill the board every turn that also plays spell school cards. Like are you going to control the board into this? Probably not, right? Like you kind of want to have them removing your board and then you pop this down after. You don't want this to be like, I cleared your board, I let you have the initiative, and then I come back. Like, that won't make any sense. So then my question is, like, do we have spell schools that summon minions? Because if we don't, like, what are we doing here? It's a cool card. I like this stuff. Maybe run one.
It goes along well with, like, you got Cabaret Headliner, which is Battlecry, reduce the cost of a spell of each school in your hand by 2. So you're going to be able to hopefully get enough spells out of Shaman before turn 7 to make this at least viable.
Yeah. This Malted Magma card looks super exciting to me. You get 3 of these. Is this how this works? 3 drinks left? You get to cast this 3 times?
It's like monkeys in a barrel.
Heck yeah, and this just deals 1 to all my enemies. I love that this goes face. This is very exciting to me. Oh. Throw down a spell power minion and just have at it. Ooh,
and spell totem's back.
Build your own flame strike. Oh, spell totem's back. Yeah. Oh, that's a party. Is it weird that I'm most excited about Molten Magma?
No, it's a good card.
I hope so. We'll
yeah,
see.
well, it's potentially a good card, yeah. And you also got the Siren Song, which gets 2 random. It's a 2-mana spell that gets 2 random spells from schools you haven't cast yet this game. So it kind of can help fill out that curve to get to Razzle Dazzle. So there's a deck there. I don't know if that deck's going to be good, but there's a deck there.
I'm on record of saying that in Hearthstone, it feels weird as a Magic player to say, but I think card draw and card value is like highly overrated in Hearthstone. Like in Hearthstone, there's so many things. Because you don't draw lands or anything, you're just always drawing value. And there's so many things that give you value as well as playing them, that whenever I see a card that just says draw 2 cards or get 2 cards and it doesn't do anything else, I'm like, oh, I'm going to die playing this card. Like, I'm just playing. It says the control priest guy who likes playing other people's cards. It's just so hard in Hearthstone. It's such a fast game to sit there and go, I'm gonna collect things in my hand, unless you're like Armor Warrior or something.
Actually, what you were saying, so like the difference between Rogue and Priest, like I hate that we call them both Thief, like Thief Rogue and Thief Priest, because Priest, yes, they steal stuff from you, they hit you with your own cards. Rogue just generates random stuff, and that's not thievery. That's just stuff rogue, and like it's not thief rogue. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. But
well, some of the rogue cards take random things from your opponent's class.
They used
and some don't, and those are very different. Yeah, they're just kind of like random. It's like Evolve, but generating cards instead of creatures on board. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like Chaos Rogue or something. I can see that. It's a good point, Tito.
Thank you. So last week we talked, and we don't have the Demon Hunter cards yet, so we don't know how the Demon Hunter is going to interact with the Shaman. That's the interesting part of this whole set. I know, like you were always a big fan of, well, we can't evaluate it till we have the full set. But actually, in this particular case, it actually becomes a little more difficult because not only are we not getting all the cards from that class, we have to know how it interacts with the class of the cards from the other tourist class. So it makes it a little more interesting.
I actually am firmly on the other side. I'm like not evaluate, but like I usually have the other argument. I'm very much like, why wouldn't we evaluate and talk about them? Like, what else would we do with them? It's so much fun to evaluate and talk about. I've firmly been on the other side of that, Tito, actually. I said 100%, but then I was like, wait a second. No, I'm not. I'm always the guy who's like, whatever, evaluate away. We're all going to be wrong anyways. We know this. Like, we're all going to be wrong. There are cards here that look terrible that'll be powerful, and cards that look powerful that'll be terrible. Like, we know this. Who cares? Knock ourselves out. Evaluate.
So we did evaluate the half of the Warlock set last week, where we talked about the Painlock type cards, the ones that were self-damaging and all that, and we got the rest of them. The most interesting cards here, I think, are the legendary Party Planner of Vona, which is Battle Cry. If you've taken 8 damage on your turns, summon Orbis. And Orbis is, I believe, an 8 mana 8/8 that has a death rattle. Put the death rattle summon Ouroboros on a minion in your hand. So it becomes this kind of never-ending value engine as long as you have minions. It's kind of like Kangor, right? Like as long as you have another minion in your hand, you're going to get the value out of it. So it's just going to be one of those. If this is any good, you're going to get so annoyed seeing this 8/8 keep popping up every other turn and just like, come on.
Notably, they gave it taunt. Because in the past, a lot of these effects haven't had taunt, and it's like, or rush. It's like, it needs to do something. It's just an 8/8. Oh, okay, I'll just ignore it. Whatever. But yeah.
And
there'll be games where you're like you'll be 3 off lethal or something, and that 8/8 keeps popping up, and you'll just be like, you'll be wanting to hit that big red button.
We're already experiencing that right now with Kiliax. Because anytime Kiliax
are we calling it Kiliax?
Yeah, because you have to get through it 4 times, right? So it's just like you have 3 mana. It's just like, oh, come on, and you can't target it with spells, and it's just like, So I can see that being super annoying. We have my Esther's returned. She's a legendary Warlock tourist. So this is, I'm sorry, that's actually from Rogue, but that comes in. So I guess we don't need to talk about that because we already talked about Rogue last week, but that one's fun because it gives you another hero power, random hero card from the past. So I think that's going to be interesting. I think also there's a couple of good card heroes for Rogue, but I don't get the synergy from. So I think Health Drink, which is lifesteal, a 3-mana drink card, lifesteal, deal 3 damage to a minion. I think that's going to be fun in Rogue because Rogue needs a little healing, and it also will trigger. You can actually use this to cycle through and play cards from another class 3 times from one card, but I don't see a whole lot of value from Rogue wanting to do anything with Warlock cards.
You're not. One of the problems with Health Drink, though, tell me if I'm wrong, when I look at it, I'm just like, I don't want to pay 3 mana to remove anything that has 3 or less health. Like, that 3 mana is like a destroy anything cost removal card where I'd be excited. 4 would be like, okay, I can maybe do that sometimes. 3, like, maybe kill something kind of annoying is like, oof, mana-wise. Like, unless you have mana reduction online to make spells cheaper, when are you ever paying 9 to deal 9 damage? I don't know. Even in Rogue, unless you have preps and it makes sense for the lifesteal. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy.
No, I mean, I think it has potential if, there's not if you really need some life gain for some particular reason, and it's 3 cards in one, so there's potential there. But
for sure, I always look at cards like I look at a card like this, and I go, "This is the kind of thing that you're going to discover into to win a game at some point. And your opponent's going to lose their mind. You're like, they got the life steal removal spells, and then cast all 3 of them. Yeah. Oh.
We also got the Warlock Taurus goes into Death Knight. We talk about Death Knight cards in a minute, but this is Summer of Darkmorrow, which is it's a 4-mana 4/4, and your Death Rattles triggered twice after you play a Death Rattle minion, destroy it. So I mean that seems to go well with like Party Plan of Viona if you want to get your Oribus out there and get that kind of moving, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm looking at these tourists and I can see the synergies with like Mage and Paladin and Rogue and stuff, but I'm not seeing like a whole lot that you'd want to do like a Warlock Death Knight deck. So let's look at the Death Knight cards real quick, thinking about that.
Yeah. This Frostbitten Freebooter looks like it's got a Warlock card written all over it. Death Rattle, freeze 3 random enemies. Any that are frozen take 5 instead. Just like controlling board and freezing up enemies in Warlock always seems good. Warlock likes to get to late game combo finishes and stuff, right? I don't know what Warlock's doing right now, though. What is Warlock doing right now in Standard?
You have Pain Lock, which is basically self-damage.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then you have Insanity Lock. And you also... So Insanity Lock, basically the... fatigue counter damage that you do yourself, and then you kind of go over the top there. And then they also have one of the only even odd decks. They have even lock, and they play some big even hand lock. So they're doing a few things like that.
But I guess now that I think about it, this card though, like unless you have that legendary out, you don't control when it dies, which is always the problem with Death Rattles in Hearthstone, right? Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a drink spell that you can kill it yourself.
This is true.
And so right now, if you look at the cards that they have, as far as Death Knight, there's only one double rune card, and that is Slippery Slope, which is 2 frost, and that's freeze a character, draw a card for each frozen character. One thing to remember is if you are pulling Death Knight cards into your Warlock deck, you are still bound by the rules of runes. So
that's cool.
It's not going to come up all that often because unless you're playing Slippery Slope, it's not going to matter. But it's just something to be aware of. So with Death Knight, outside of that, they seem to be really big into Death Rattle. So we have the legendary is Eliza Goreblade, which is a 4-mana 4/3 Death Rattle. For the rest of your game, your minions have +1 attack. I mean, that includes tokens, right? So, I mean, that now your hero power is a 2/1. Now, whenever you generate like little mini ghoul, like Ghoul's Knight, summon 5/1/1 ghouls that attack random enemies, they'll be 2/1s. Is plus
You-
1 attack powerful enough though? Like in this kind of meta?
Well, but it'll be +2 if you play it with that legendary and warlock, right? You're almost making me. I'm going like with all these sticky little warlock and demon hunter like early game cards. Is there like a zoo build with the Death Knight tourist where like your top end is like Summoner Duskmarrow and Eliza Goreblade, like buff everything +2 and swing in, like, Savage Roar, like your opponents, I don't know, maybe not, but like, look at this guy, this Dreadhound Handler, Rush, Death Rattle, summon a 1/1 Dreadhound with Reborn. I hate this card already. This thing will never die. Look at it. It just, like, someone plays this in your control deck, you're gonna be like, what do I have to kill this 3 times? It's that stupid Druid minion all over again.
It'll be especially worse if you pair it with Brittlebone Buccaneer, which is whenever you play a Death Rattle minion, give it Reborn. So not only will it never die, it'll never die.
Yeah, turn 2 Brittlebone Buccaneer into turn 3 like Dreadhound Handler and a 1-drop, and I'm print more silence effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know if I actually agree with that, but like, that's what I'll be screaming. Yeah.
And then you have Corpsicle, which is deal 3 damage, spend 3 corpses to return this to your hand at the end of your turn. So it's not going to be something that you can do kind of like Mage used to do, where you could play, every 3 spells or whatever it was, you would get another copy of it. You get it at the end of your turn.
But this is an aggro tool you'll start playing on turn 5 or 6, right? Where you're like, yeah, I'm just going to ping them for 3 every turn. Yeah. This is cool.
It's like a better head crack almost, because you also get to spend corpses, which is if you're playing, say, like Rainbow Death Knight, you will want to spend corpses for your climatic necrotic explosion or whatnot. So there's potential there. And then, of course, Buttons, which is the 5-mana 5/5 Shaman Taurus for Death Knight, which is Battlecry, draw a spell of each spell school. So, I mean, you'll be curating your deck very specifically for that. I don't know. It's hard to say right now, looking at some... having this Taurus effect really kind of like warps your mind, like, well, what does a multi-deck look like? And I'm wondering if this is just kind of them testing the waters on what they can do with, like, mixing classes. Like, I'm wondering if we're going to get more stuff like this in the future.
Yeah. I like how they've tempered that kind of mechanic in the past, too, with dual class stuff. I like that we dip in, but we don't fully, like, submerge, Like, I'm glad we don't have full-on, like, just throw all your Rogue and Death Knight cards together. Like, I'm glad we don't do that. I hope they stick with it this way. But, yeah. I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. Was the first... Mm-hmm. First one was the Gadget Zan set, right? Like
Streets, class, yeah. And the interesting thing too is that, like, it obviously causes a balance issue. Like, you now have to, like, it feels bad if you have a card here and I'm a Death Knight and Brittlebone Buccaneer is being nerfed because of the crimes of Warlock. It was kind of like the same thing that happened with like a couple of the dual class cards in the Druid and Priest. Like, all Druid just kind of warped them all, and they all got nerfed before Priest really found a home for them. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I do like that. I think, like, that stuff is so hard to balance for, and I do, as much as I'm saying, sometimes I wait for them to balance it before I really get into a set. I do like their wait and see approach more than like now, where they're like, we'll go for it, and if it's unbalanced, we'll fix it. I do like that approach to design. I think we get more interesting cards for it.
With the change of cadence with this one, though, like, we'll get to see that, right? Because we have 2 more weeks before they'll have the actual real balance patch instead of, like, the emergency button.
Yeah.
So
could be fun. This looks like a much harder to balance set, right, than usual. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully it gives us more options of more kinds of decks too, because that's what we want, more variety, right? And having the Taurus hopefully kind of leads us there. There's one other card we need to talk about before we wrap up, and that is a warrior card that was released, and it's a 7-mana. It's a legendary weapon, 7-mana 4/2. It's called the Rye Cleaver, and this is a Battlecry and Death Rattle. Get a slice of bread. you get 2 slices of bread between and minions in between. So basically, think about you get a piece of bread in your hand, and then all the minions that you draw after that. And when you swing with the weapon again, any minions between those 2 slices of bread are your sandwich. And then you get a 2-mana spell after you. All those minions will get stuffed into a sandwich into a 2-mana spell. And this sandwich will be it's 2 mana. Summon the minion stuffed in the sandwich. It's really weird. And the other day I'm sitting there and this was released. I didn't really look too much of it. And Doc messaged me. He's like, "How come we didn't get this reveal? This bread."
Yeah, 100%. You should have got this reveal. What the heck? Come on, Hearthstone.
Yeah.
I think my son is so excited about this card. Dad, I got to tell you about this card they revealed. And I was like, tell me again? And then by the time I saw it, I totally was like, oh, I shouldn't have. I should have been like, yeah, it looks real good. I was like, dude, this card is terrible. He's like, I don't care. I'm like, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have had that response. It's so, I mean, this is so bad, right? Like, it's so cool. I love making a sandwich, but like, it's turn 7. You get it. And then like, how many cards do you want to draw before you make your sandwich? Quite a few.
And they have to be non-battle cries and
Yeah, you don't want to build your deck with battle cries. That value's gone. And they improved it by making it a 2-mana spell. At first I was like, why do I have to pay 2 for it? And then I'm like, oh, they had to make it a spell so that, because you don't always want it to go off when it dies, right? And you're on turn 10 anyway by the time you make a sandwich, right? Probably 9 or 10. So, like, you have all the mana in the world. 2 mana doesn't matter. They could make it 0 mana. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I don't know. We'll see. And maybe I'll eat my hat. I hope it's good, but, like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I like that on Death Rattle, it makes the second side of the sandwich. So if someone wrecks your weapon, you still hopefully get something. And then you can't be really running this in a Control Warrior package. So, like, what are you waiting for with this weapon? I don't know.
Could it go in Taunt Warrior?
Oh, I guess.
Because Taunt Warrior's taunt and death rattles.
Yeah, that would be great in a taunt. Like that's probably where it would live. It's the same as what's the 5-mana creature that draws 5 cards, minion? And then if they're spells, you give them to your enemy. It's got the same problem as that card where it's like it needs to be in an almost all minion deck. Like
and do the cards maintain their buffs? That are, if like you have cards that are buffed in your hand and they do they maintain your buffs? And what happens to the spells between those? Are they like the mayo and the mustard? Do they I don't know.
Who knows? Hearthstone doesn't have a rule book, but yeah, I would assume if there's spells in between, it'll just skip them, and then the spell will just change its spot in your hand once you get the sandwich card.
I do really love that we have this card, Slice of Bread. Like, you're going to have slice of bread in your hand. That's actually pretty amazing. And then the minion sandwich is, like, awesomely done. I don't know who did the art on that, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah. I'm definitely crafting this card golden day 1.
That's awesome. Any card that generates other cards is the right call to craft golden. 100%.
So what I want to do with this card, and we'll wrap up after this. I want to play this card, and then I want to play the card, the Gaslight Gatekeeper, that shuffles all your cards into your hand, and then get another piece of bread in my hand, and then just see what happens when I eventually draw this card.
Yeah,
sometime later I get a sandwich, but
I love it.
Tell you what, Doc, this was a lot, and little sandwich talk here. I'm feeling a bit full, but I think there's still time for dessert. What do you think?
Yeah, dessert sounds pretty good for me. So, Joel, what is your favorite summer food?
Favorite summer food? Oh man, I love food. How do you ask me this question?
Well, I specifically asked your camp food because I know you're a camper.
Oh, I do like camping. Breakfast. Definitely breakfast when I'm camping, man. Like just cutting up your own hash browns and then over easy eggs, tomato, green onion. I fry the cheese in with the hash browns,
That
So
sounds
the
really good.
cheese gets really crispy, like mostly just melty, but a little crispy by the end. And then, yeah, breakfast is like my favorite meal, either camping or at the cabin. I love eggs, man. Eggs is party. Yeah.
Do you have chickens?
Awesome.
No, I don't have chickens. I live in a townhouse. No, but I do like farm fresh eggs. I am a sucker for fresh eggs. Yeah.
Like I said, I have 7 chickens. They're great.
Oh man, lucky man.
I will say for the 4th, I did have farm to table ribs because Cortland's grandparents had a pig that they slaughtered, right? And they weren't like, obviously they weren't like as big as ribs that you could get in a store or whatever, but there's just something different where it's like, you know exactly where this animal came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much tastier the food often is too.
Mm-hmm.
You ever have like one of my favorite fresh foods to eat in the summer is carrots in my grandparents' yard. My mom grows a lot of her own veggies, but like my grandparents would always grow carrots, and there's something about like how sweet carrots are when you actually pull them right out of the dirt. And I'm like, and I even get nostalgic when there's a bit of dirt on the carrot.
Yes.
I'm like, it tastes better. It tastes better with a bit of dirt still on the carrot. And everyone's always like, you're crazy. I'm glad, Doc, you're with me. I'm like, no, like when there's a bit of it, you can taste the soil. It's that black soil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like an extra earthy flavor.
Yeah,
I'm
all for it.
Yeah, my sorry, a little bit of vegetable talk, and then I'll get to the next ending bit. But I have this very distinct childhood memory of my grandma's neighbors who like had this fantastic vegetable garden. I went over there a couple times with my grandma, visited them, and they knew I liked banana peppers or pepperoncinis, whatever you call them in your area. They grew one that was the size of a bell pepper.
Whoa.
And they gave it to me, and I ate that thing. And man, it was so spicy for like 7-year-old Doc, right? But it's just still one of those things. I wish I could go back in time and just get to eat that vegetable again.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So listeners, if you've survived this far through Magic Talk and Vegetable Talk, please leave us a review. We prefer 5 stars because it helps with visibility, but give us your honest review on how you feel the show's going. Because we want the show to be the best it can be for us, but also the best it can be for you, the listener. So we'll take any criticism you have and make the adjustments if we have to, and then we'll read your reviews or emails out on the show. And you can email the show at breadandbutterhs@gmail.com. So, Joel, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, man. Honestly, I'm not on social media as much as I used to be. I'm Enthralimund1 on Twitter, but I don't go on there very much.
Why are you Enthralimund1 and not Enthralimund? It seems to be a pretty unique name.
I took my own username. Thanks, Tito. This is Dan's favorite bit. I guess I signed up for Twitter one day, didn't like it, and then like 3 years later, tried to sign up again, forgetting I had ever tried it before. So I was like, oh, I guess there's another Enthralimund out there, and then realized that it's me. Yeah,
the call was coming from inside the house.
Yeah, but I was already had too many friends and followers and whatever to bother switching. So, yeah, I have 2 Twitter accounts apparently. But honestly, Squelch, Discord, or like I'm in there a bit more, but also just Squelch, another Hearthstone podcast, or Squelch Season 2. Like
a former Hearthstone podcast.
Yep. Squelch 2, another podcast. Yeah, I don't know what the title situation is. We'll have to see.
Listeners, you can find me on Twitter at Doc McButt. And how about yourself, Tito?
You can find me on
username.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Twitch, and soon to be TikTok at Tito Santana HS. Joel, do you have anything you want to promote or any shout outs this week?
I don't know. Shout out to my son Nate, who will inevitably listen to this podcast, and shout out to you all for having me on. Thank you so much, and to my friends over at Squelch and everyone who listens to Squelch and everyone who listens here. Love Love you, podcast people. You're the best.
We love you too. Doc, how about you? Any shout outs or promotions?
Yeah, first and foremost, Joel, thank you so much for coming on the show again. I'm glad I got to make it this time. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and yeah, you're just a fun person in the community, so I'm glad I finally got to have a chance to talk with you for a bit. And secondary shout out, my mother-in-law. She's super great. Had really heartfelt conversation with her over the 4th, and it's just fun to have like found family. Like it's just a good time. For those who know, you know.
And not everybody has it, right? You have to remember that when you have it. Like, that's pretty cool.
How about yourself, Tito?
Yeah, sometimes you have found mother-in-laws that you don't particularly like either. But so I want to thank Ben Heathstone again for using his images.
Is Ben Heathstone your mother-in-law?
No. Also, this week, if you hear this on the day I release this, it should be released on Tuesday. On Tuesday night, the 9th, we're going to have Draco Cat on my stream. We're doing a little co-op, his return to Hearthstone. One night only. We're going to play a little Death Knight. We'll see what happens. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, I'd like to, I'd like to shout out Wizards of the Coast. Thank you for sponsoring this episode. But anyway, guys, I think we're toast. We'll see ya.
Bye-bye.
Peace out.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.